give them the table.
That was a good introduction, actually.
Yeah.
Hi guys, my name is Colleen Phelps. I'm losing my voice. I've got a little bit of a cold. But this is my coworkers, Michael and Glenn.
Good morning.
And we're both fish and wildlife biologists with the Ventura office of the Fish and Wildlife Service. And as your professor just talked about, we work with endangered species a lot in our Ventura office, but the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, our mission is to conserve, preserve, and enhance fish, wildlife, and plants for the continuing benefit of you guys, of the American people. So we don't just do...
She forgot one little part of it.
What's that?
And
With partners.
well, that too. Partners, and the habitats that they
Right.
depend on, which is why you guys are here.
Yeah. So, yeah, we do all that in partnership. So we do work with endangered species, but our mission as an agency isn't just endangered species. It's a whole slew of all the plants, all the animals, making sure that your grandchildren have them there when they grow up. We'll start by just talking to you guys about what our jobs are and how we got to be where we are now. And then just let you guys know a little bit about the Fish and Wildlife Service, because you guys are probably looking at what kind of jobs you might want to get into and as you're going through these programs, and this is just one avenue that you guys might want to go in. Restoration ecology is great. We do have restoration specialists, but in the Ventura office we do a lot of wildlife biology. My background, I grew up in Orange County surfing, just at the beach, just love being outdoors, and went to college at Cal State Channel Islands in Camarillo. Actually took some classes here. And during my senior year of college, I got an internship with the Fish and Wildlife Service in Ventura, and we have some really great programs for while you're a college student. One of them is called a SCEP position, a Student Career Experience Program. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to get an experience with a federal agency. It can be with the Fish and Wildlife Service, it can be with the Park Service, with NOAA. It's all across the government. And it lets you go in, see what it's about, and see if you like it. And a lot of times you can get a job when you graduate. And that's what happened for me. When I graduated, I got brought on full-time with the service, and I've been there for about 2 years. It's a really great thing. If you guys want to look at usajobs.gov, it's a really great resource for positions, not with the Fish and Wildlife Service particularly, but with, you know, all of our different agencies. But I got into my position now as a wildlife biologist just because I love being outdoors. I love a lot of things that you guys are probably into, being outside and working to keep everything that's here for my kids, and I want to be a part of that movement. So that's my background. I'll send it over to Mike. You got a better story.
I grew up in Upland or Ontario, and so I spent a lot of time in the desert with my grandparents and my parents, and fell in love with the desert tortoise and the desert. And so I went to Cal Poly Pomona and was in that department there, and then kind of did some ornamental horticulture for about 4 years. Wanted to be a veterinarian, did that for a little while, and then I met somebody named Glenn Stewart, and he was very involved with petitioning to get things listed, and told me how horrible the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service was, because they weren't doing a good job, and how horrible it was because they weren't doing a good job. So I spent the next decade avoiding working for the federal government with everything I could possibly do, and went into doing a little restoration ecology, working for an environmental firm. And then really realized who the devil was, and that was this environmental firm I worked for. But the whole time I was working with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and they were so wonderful, so helpful, so knowledgeable. So through that friendship with Ventura Fish and Wildlife, I went to them and said, "You guys looking for somebody?" And they said, "Yeah, we're looking for a desert tortoise guy. You know any desert tortoise guys?" So I just lucked out because professor was a desert tortoise guru. So I got hired on tortoise work, and I had a and fish in general, and so I kind of got moved to working with this little fish that was listed in 1967 on the original endangered species list, and to date it has 3 little teeny populations that wouldn't probably fill this room. And while I was doing the listing on that, it became pretty evident that it was in horrible shape, and we were down to basically 0 fish that year. They had already gone extinct in the 50s once, but didn't. who owns Pupfish.
Pupfish.
Yeah.
From Mills Valley.
Yeah, and pupfish in general are really in bad shape because they occur in little springs, and anytime you draw down the water, the spring goes bye-bye and so do the fish. So I started working with that, and there's a lot of lawsuits involved in that, and I didn't make anyone mad or get fired, so they had me work on a petition to list a little fringe-toed lizard in the desert. Problem with it was that it wants to live on sand dunes, and we, or OHVers, want to drive on sand dunes, and they can't really coexist. And then, so this is a huge, huge lawsuit for probably going to go on till I die. But, a lot of people very upset about it, and a lot of threats. And during this process, I realized I was taking away freedoms from the entire U.S. population. So that was kind of neat. People, you can write in letters to talk about the petition to list, and they pointed out that I'm personally responsible for taking away all the freedoms of all Americans by closing down the dune for this little lizard.
It's pretty awful.
Yeah, I never felt so important. And so through this process, I got to go talk to at least one grade school about fish, because I work with an endangered fish on the Santa Clara River, the unarmored three-spine stickleback. When I was working for the consulting firm, that was a thing we worked on. So I got the opportunity to talk to the school and loved it, but realized that we needed to do more of it.
In 1/4 redwood shavings. What's this stuff here? It's too coarse for smaller pots. See that? It's just coarse. So what we do is we cut it in half with our seedling mix, which is much finer. And the seedling mix is called Sunshine number 5. So this is all sterilized. This mix here has been sterilized, so there's no weeds in here. This has been sterilized, so there's no weeds in here. What do I do? 4 handfuls each. 50-50 mix. We add a little dab of 14 Osmocote, which is
a little dab.
Time-release fertilizer, which goes for 6 months. Something like that, maybe, is it plenty? Oh, maybe the whole thing. And then you mix it up, and you end up with a much finer.
So you're doing about half to half,
medium.
And half, right?
See how it makes it a little finer than the coarse stuff. That's the coarse, and then this is the fine, and so when you mix the two, you end up with something that's about right. So then the next secret is to grab. Can you guys hand me a 2-inch or 4-inch pot? Let's see how these roots look. Usually, what you do is you fill it about halfway with the mix, and then you
So you want to
take a fork.
You want to set yourself up a station.
Right. 3 plants in there. I'm going to prick these things out.
Oh, look you got 4.
I got 4.
And lots of roots.
Okay, so look how small this plant is, and then when you separate these roots, you got to be careful. You don't just yank them, right? Look at that. The root system is 5-6 times longer than the plant at the top. That's because it's a California native adapted to drought-tolerant climates. If it can't get its root down to water quick, it's going to die, right? So it spends a lot more energy in roots than it does on the top. So then you're just going to put a little hole so that root can go down.
Do you notice how he's not touching the roots? You don't
Why would I not want to touch the roots?
What's that? Mm-hmm, exactly.
There are oils on your hands, and they will dry out the root and cause the plant to go into stress. You don't need to compact it in there too much. You want it near the top. And now we have this nice little hummingbird sage pricked out into a 2-inch.
4-inch.
Into a 4-inch. The 2 inches are, yeah, the 2 inches are back there. That's a rose pot. Were we going to have enough room to do all these 4 inches? I guess we will. We might as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we can't go smaller with those.
Right, so do another one. So you just work your way through these. We'll set up a station on this whole bench. Everybody can have a flat, maybe 2 people per flat.
See, and so it's not automatic which size you're pricking out to. You actually just need to pull out a plant and see what the root system looks like. Some of these, what is this in front of you, Ruthie?
Probably Artemisia.
Or it's Artemisia, I think.
Okay, so that's the old man sage. You know,
You know what ARC is?
yeah, that's Artemisia californica. So that may or may not, once we take out the first one, we'll see what kind, and then we'll decide if we want 2-inch or 4-inch. So what you're balancing there is the physical properties of the plants with the space in the nursery.
Obviously, smaller pots means you could put more plants in a nursery, but if the plant doesn't like small pots because it has a big root system, then you've got to use the bigger pots. And these ones will develop a root system very rapidly. This plant will be ready to sell in a 4-inch in probably a month or 2. If it doesn't get sold in a month or 2 or 3, it'll go into a 1-gallon pot, and then we have another 6 months or so to sell it. If we can't sell it in 6 months, then it'll go into a 2-gallon pot. If we can't sell it in a 2-gallon pot, we're history, because no one will buy it in a 5-gallon pot. And
So
they'll buy an oak tree in a 5-gallon pot, but they're not going to buy a hummingbird sage.
That's because of digging the hole. The industry standard is a 1-gallon pot. That's the auger. The bits for augers are made for 1 gallon. Shovels are made for 1 gallon. Every landscaper installer is used to digging a hole for a 1-gallon plant. They don't want to go bigger. They'll do it for trees because that's a whole nother mindset. But for a shrub or something like a hummingbird sage, they don't want to dig a bigger hole. So that's a marketing thing.
Hummingbird sage is a shade-loving sage. It's the only sage that we grow that grows as an understory. I was up at the Hollister Ranch the other day on a parcel, and the cows couldn't get up underneath these oak trees, and so there was still a very nice oak understory still, and it was basically lots of hummingbird sage underneath there. It's hard to find good oak understory left because it's been so damaged. It's either got weeds underneath it, or it's been grazed by animals, or it's been planted in a lawn, or it's been ruined. So it's hard to find good oak understory shape for a hummingbird. And then there's these.
On a hot sunny day, low humidity, we wouldn't want to be doing this.
And then how much should I fill it? Should I fill it way up to the very top?
You want to fill it up to the top. You can press down around the edges. Don't press down close to the plant.
Where's this one?
Okay.
So
there
is that
you go.
enough, or should I put more
well,
in?
It's going to sink down, so
Okay.
I just do a little
As
bit
much
more.
as you can. Okay.
Yeah. So there you got a whole line of them.
Okay. And you'd say all these were 2-inch?
You got is a little. You want to make transplant your plant that it stays at the soil level it was in the pot, that the stem does. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want it sticking out. You don't want roots in the air, and you don't want the plant buried in soil. So see how I just brought it up just a little bit. Array, but then you have the desert tortoise. So you have, kind of 2 conflicting goals there.
Yeah, and how is leasing it to cattle ranches, how is that,
Oh, that's been part
protecting?
of our history since the
Well,
But I mean,
foundation.
but that's
of
not
the
really
It's not.
protecting.
No.
For $100 a year
We're not. I don't know if it's 100, but it's not very much money.
for acres and
Penny.
acres.
Yeah, it's not very much money at
Now
all.
is the BLM.
They're still doing that. Yeah, and the BLM is, that's property owned by the American taxpayer.
That's why they have to raise our,
Well, there used to be grazing in national parks. There's grazing in national forests. I mean, that has been, although Leopold in 1920 was fighting the addition of grazers and saying there's too many permits for grazers. And even then it was the pressure to raise money. Feds need the money, so that takes precedent.
This is one of the things you want to do, which Don is always advocating for, is you want to get political, and not only does that mean voting, but it means writing to your elected representatives and letting them know what you think about these things. You know, and so getting yourself educated. So you can consider today your first step in getting yourself educated on land use, you know, how land is used in America.
Especially the West.
Especially the West.
If you have a chance on the computer, you know, because it's going to be raining, Google the Center for Biological Diversity in Tucson, Arizona. They've got a team of lawyers, and they're the ones that sue Fish and Wildlife more than anybody else, because they look at those biological opinions that they have to balance the needs of the grazers with the needs of the environment, and if it's too much leaning towards the grazers, then they'll sue. It's a great group, the Center for Biological Diversity in Tucson. And then there's the Defenders for Wildlife, there's the Natural Resources Defense Council, there's all these groups that have teams and teams of lawyers that makes Fish and Wildlife's life miserable. But without them, corporate interests would beat up environmental interests every single time.
See, and this is just the way the system